Welcome back everyone to Blender Lighting and Compositing for Beginners, and this is where we left it off. Well, this isn't where we left it off, but this is where I left it off, where I actually went in and I rendered this out a much higher sample. You can see that we've got none of that noise in the scene now. You can see that very subtly we've actually got that beautiful sun shafts coming through there. And of course now we know how to actually turn those up. We can actually go into the volume, turn up the, let's actually do that now. So we've got that. Let's go over to compositing, not compositing, let's go over to shading. Let's actually click on our volume. So I'm just gonna go in to, if I press Alt H, bring back my volume. We can see that if we want to increase this, all we need to increase is the density, and then we'll get some much harsher sun shafts, coming through the window. All right, everyone. So I hope you enjoyed this part, and I hope you learned a lot from this part. And now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to, let's actually pull this up, to Studio Lighting, which is this one here. So let's close this down, like so. And then what we'll do is we'll actually go up, we'll open the project first of all. So the project will be one that I'm sure a lot of you will enjoy doing. So here's the project, and let's come in and let's also open up the example, and I'll put that on the other screen as per normal. So the idea here is to basically have a scene where this is lit really nicely, showing all the gleams of the cars, and then go into the compositing and show you what we can actually do with this, because we can do a lot of things with this. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put it on render mode, like so. And this is what we've got to start with. Totally gray, black scene. What we want to do first of all is want to bring in, for studio lighting especially, want to bring in a ground plane with a actual background. So let's do that now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and put it on materials first. And then I'm going to come to the center, so the actual cursor's in the center. So Shift S, cursor to world origin, Shift A, let's bring in a plane. Let's make this plane much bigger, like so. I'm going to make it even bigger than that, even bigger, like so. And then what I'm going to do now with the back, I'm going to bring it back. So I'm going to come to Edge Select, grab this edge, press Shift Spacebar, bring in the Move tool, bring it back. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press E and Z and pull it up, like so. I'm going to grab this bottom part then, press Control B, pull it out for a bevel. And then what I'm going to do is increase it with my mouse, middle mouse button, like so. Left click, and there we go. Now we will see that we've got some lines on there. We don't want those at all. So right click, shade, auto smooth. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come to this side now and really pull it out. And the reason is we're taking a camera view from over here. So we really need to make sure that this is pulled out just so we can't see the edge of this. We don't want to see any edges of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually come into this. I'm going to press tab, grab this edge, and then just pull it out. Next of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my camera. So I'm just going to set my camera up to something. Let's press tab. Let's set up our camera to be somewhere around here. Let's press Shift A then and bring in our camera. So camera, Control Alt 0 to bring it in. Zoom in twice or 3 times just to get it so it's on the outside. N to open the panel up where we can actually click camera to view, and again to close it. And now let's set our camera up to where we want it. So I think for me, I'm going to have my camera set up something like this. Make sure it's in the middle. And then what I'm doing is now I'm actually checking over the left hand side, and I can see, look, we've got a little bit of this piece here. We don't actually want that. Now my camera set up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the N button, take off camera to view, N button to close it, grab this part, tab, and then I can actually move this now out of the way. So I'm just going to come back, move it over further, tab, 0, and there we go. Still a little bit. Let's move it over even further. Tab, 0, and there we go. Now it's all actually in frame. All right, so with this actual material here, so this one here, I also want to make sure that we're on Eevee. So just make sure that you're on Eevee. Let's change the render up to something like 200, something like that. Let's also change it up on the viewport as well to 200. And then we're going to get a good idea of what all of this is going to look like. Now, let's just come into this ground plane. Let's go over to shading panel. Let's give it a new material. So you can actually do it here as well, or you can do it over here. Let's call it ground plane. Ground plane. like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in and change the base color of this and turn the roughness up. So first of all, let's put it onto Eevee, like so. Let's turn up the roughness. Actually, there's no point putting on Eevee because we aren't going to light source in. Let's just turn the roughness up and let's put this onto grey. Now, it's important to know that you'll probably, when you're doing this yourself, you'll probably bring in the lights and not the ground plane material first. So there is that to consider. All right, so now we've done that, let's come out of here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add in our first actual light source. So we're going to bring in an actual area light. So let's bring in an area light. So we're going to press Shift A, bring in a area light. Let's press Shift Space Bar, move. Let's bring it up. And then I want to point my area light. If I go over the top, first of all, I want to put it round about at the edge of here. So I'm going to press G, move it round to the edge of there. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rotate it. So I'm going to rotate it up. So R, X, rotate it this way. And then R, Z, rotate it this way. And then go over the top. So RZ. So where I want it pointing is right on this part here. So this part here is where I want it pointing. So RZ, let's point it right on there. Now, the other thing is I want it pointing like at the top of it. So I want to bring this up a little bit. Now, you can do that by pressing R, X, and then X again. And you should be able to move it up like so. All right, that's looking about right. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to change a few of these things on here. So, for instance, the shape, I want to put it as a rectangle. And then what I want to do is I want to make this much, much bigger now. Like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually bring in my light now. So let's put this on. Let's put it on 1,000. So 1,000 like so. And then what we'll do is we'll actually turn down the, I'm just wondering actually, is this, can I turn that down? Yeah, that's gonna, I don't actually want to turn that down. I'm just gonna have them on 1. All right, so the other thing is I want shadows on, just make sure my shadows are on. And then finally, I'm also going to turn on contact shadows as well. All right, I'm going to leave these the way they are. I'm not going to alter these, just going to make sure contact shadows are on. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I turn this into a slightly blue tint. So I'm going to turn this into a slightly blue tint like so. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring in another light. So I'm going to basically grab the same light. So this one here, I'm going to go over the top like so. I'm going to press Shift D. Like so. I'm going to then bring this one over and spin it round. So R, Z, let's spin it round. And then I'm thinking now I want to actually bend it down so that it's touching the floor round about here. So if we then press, let's have a look, R, X, X, bring it down. We want it touching the floor round about there. I'm just looking at that angle, whether I'm happy with it. I think I'm just going to pull it back a little bit. So G, let's pull it back. And then R, X, X. And just have it touching the floor like so. Now with this one here, I want to actually make sure that this is a different color. I want to put this on a little bit of a reddish, tingy color like so. All right, and again, I want to make sure that contact shadows are on, which they should be. Okay, so the one problem we've got here is that you can see at the moment that these, for some reason, haven't come in, and the reason is that I didn't save it out with, if we go to external data, with it automatically packed. So I need to make sure that when you actually get this, it's going to be automatically packed for you. So when you bring this in, it should look like this. And that is what it should look like when you bring your own in. So just make sure all of that is actually done for us. All right, so now we've got that. Let's actually, as you can see now, that is looking pretty nice. But can we actually make it look better than that? And the answer to that question is yes, of course we can. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come over to Eevee. So let's come over to Eevee. Let's turn on ambient occlusion first. And let's actually open up the ambient occlusion and we'll just turn some of these options up. So let's turn this distance up to 4. Now we've got some nice shadows going underneath. You can see as well with the studio lighting that we have some really, really nice shadows. If we press 0 on the background here as well, that's exactly what we're looking for. Let's also turn up this trace precision to 1. And let's now go to bloom. So let's turn up the bloom and we can see now we're getting some really, really nice lighting off of this. So like so. Let's open up that bloom then and make sure everything should be like this. So you should have these all like this. Now, of course, if we scroll down, the main thing that we want on is screen space reflection. If we don't have that on, we're really not going to make the most of the light bouncing off of here, especially being as this is metalwork. So let's come in and turn screen space reflection on, and you can see, oh wow, it's actually starting to look pretty realistic now. Now, the other thing I like to do is I also like to come down to shadows. At the moment, you can see that the shadows are 512. Now, what does this mean? This basically means that the quality of the shadows is set pretty low. It's only going to be set onto a 512 resolution image, and we, of course, want it higher than that. So let's just put this to 4096. Let's do the same thing with this as well, and now we should get much, much, much nicer shadows. And finally, now let's come down to the color management. And the last thing I want to do is I want to see if I can actually mess around with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my look. I'm going to put it on to high contrast. So high contrast like so. And it's up to you whether you want it on that. You can see that there's a huge difference from none to high contrast. I'm thinking that it looks probably a little bit better with the high contrast on. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the exposure to 0.377. like so, and then I'm also going to bring the gamma down slightly to 0.843, like so, and now I think that is looking pretty good. All right, so just to reiterate then, the main things that we are doing here, because it is studio lighting, is we're making sure that we're having soft lighting. That's the main actual thing about this. The second thing that we are also doing with the lights is we're making sure that they're really, really showing off whatever object that we've got here. So you can see as well, the way the whole thing is built, it's actually tilted as well. So if you actually trying to do studio lighting, let's say on a ring, make sure you put the ring in a certain angle, which is really going to show off all of those curves and make it sparkle. What you really want to make sure that you're doing is, if I press 0 now, we can see that we've got this gleam from this light, this gleam on here, and it really, really looks like it's got a lot of the, metal work and things like that in it. The other thing is that the background on studio lighting should always be set like this, so that we've got really, really soft lighting bouncing back off it. So you can see now that this would look good in an actual showroom. And when I took the render, if I take the render and remove the background and put a showroom in the back, you could actually probably get this to look like it's actually in a showroom. It's going to look that actual good. All right, so now what we'll do then on the next lesson is we'll come in and we'll set up our options to be the correct ones, and then we're going to render it out, do a little bit of compositing, and we'll finish with an actual studio lit car. All right, everyone, so I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.